knowing the day the most segregated place in the country, all the bad stuff we hear about Milwaukee. Sure. But you still live there. You can live anywhere you want. Especially out of context, you can be anywhere you want, but you're still in Milwaukee. What's your assessment of where Milwaukee is today? Hi, this is Henry Sanders back for another episode of Real Talk, and we want to thank our sponsor over at Park Bank. Thanks for all you do for us. I have a guest of mine, a friend of mine, a brother from Milwaukee, the Milltown himself, DJ Hines. How you doing, sir?
Great, man.
You good?
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on our show, man.
Glad to be here.
So I've been trying to get this guy to, come to Madison for a long time and do stuff with us a long time. He's a busy man, but
I'm not too busy for you.
Oh, wow.
I'm not too busy for you.
See, I like this. See, this is what it's because the camera's on. This guy, he stood me up a couple times. We won't talk about that,
here we go.
We won't talk about that.
See, we just said we're going to be good.
No, I'm going to be good. That's right. I did say that. I'm going to behave because he has a trump card on me that he can pull on.
There we go.
No problems.
Okay.
So, DJ, you have a fascinating background, right? One, you come from the biggest black church in the state of Wisconsin. Probably one of the biggest churches in general, but definitely the biggest black church in Wisconsin. You have your dad is one of the well-known pastors. Actually, I sent you a video like your dad's been with TD Jakes. Like he's a well-known pastor. Yes. I bet people don't realize we have well-known people in the state of Wisconsin. You guys do some schools. What's the name of the schools you guys have?
The Darrell and Hines Academy of Excellence is our K4 through 8, and then our high school is Destiny High School.
Right. And you guys were state champions.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
We won
a state championship. Yep, go Eagles.
And you have a music background?
Yeah, I worked in the music business for several years. Started out in gospel, actually working with my dad. I executive produced his last album, which is Darrell Hines Live. We recorded the album live. Funny story behind that album was he was on TBN, which is the Trinity Broadcast Network, the largest Christian network in the world. It's in hundreds of countries all over the world. Yeah. And they broadcasted several pastors who also have backgrounds in music. So they were all on the show together. I think it was Pastor Marvin Winans and my dad and Gary Oliver, a few other ones, and they all sang together. And the next day, our phone started to ring. Off the hook, people were looking for my dad's music, and he hadn't recorded anything in years. So I'm like, Dad, you gotta record some music. You got this great gift. There were great musicians at the church, wonderful background singers. Let's just, record something. So we recorded the album live right in the sanctuary. We had a recording truck come up from Nashville, Watermark, and we did it, and we just really did it so he would have it, and if people wanted it, he would have it to offer on his travels as he's ministering all over the place. And turns out that a distribution company reached out to us and they wanted to distribute the album. So, it was on the shelves in Target and Walmart and everywhere else. And it was nominated for several Stellar Awards. So it kind of just snowballed into me working in the music business. Represented several artists and many different genres and
give us name drop some names. I want people to know. I want people to know who we're dealing with right now because I'm doing this on purpose because a lot of times in Wisconsin we don't recognize we have so many talented people here who are actually connected to a lot of things and doing things that are outside of the typical Wisconsin scope of doing things. Sure. So just tell us.
Well, I mean, there were several local artists that I've worked with, and on a national scale, probably the biggest name that you all will recognize would be Mace.
Like Diddy Mace.
Yeah. He's a good friend of mine, and
wait, hold up. Hey Mace, I want to be your friend. Hey, holla at your boy. We friends. We can be friends, Mace. Like we can all do this.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. We've been knowing each other for probably almost 20 years now, and he was just at a point in his life where there were some things he wanted to do in music, and there was a point where our paths just kind of crossed, and he really was more of a mentor to me at that time, where he showed me the ropes and taught me a lot that I hadn't known if I wasn't working so closely with him. So yeah, man, it was great experience.
Meeting Mace, did you meet any other famous people going through
that? I mean, down to everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
Who's everybody? Is that like to me, everyone. Did you meet Diddy?
Of course. Oh yeah, several. Yeah, most definitely.
Oh, really?
Spent a lot of time with Puff. I mean, spent a lot of time with Kanye. You know,
Kanye.
Yeah. I mean, the list goes on.
This is Jesus Kanye, or like this before? This before.
This was Jesus Kanye.
Okay.
This was Jesus. But nonetheless, even in that interaction, you could tell that he had a heart for God, and you know, it was his journey is kind of we're seeing, you know, the evidence of his journey. It wasn't an overnight thing, and I can attest to that because I was there, you know, several years ago in the studio, and you could hear he had a heart for God. But everybody's journey is different,
right? And
everyone's pathway has its own route. But yeah, man, it was great. You know, Mace he's a legend in the game, and he moves in, you know, the elite spaces, and you know,
that's amazing. And you're saying, what I love about you is you're saying all humble, like I know Mace, Puff, oh yeah,
but no,
you know what I mean? That's a cool thing, right? Like, you know, even like so. DJ here was on our most influential list, and so
thank you again for that. Thank you so much. Yeah,
and one of the funny things was when you got on it, Magic Johnson tweeted out and said, "Congratulations to my boy DJ, etc., etc." The Magic Johnson, like Showtime Magic Johnson, like Irving Magic Johnson, like the Magic Johnson. And I was, oh my God, this brother's the truth.
Yeah, that was a shocker for me too, man. Like I had no idea. He is a mentor of mine, and I met him again through my dad. My dad ministered at the church that he attends in California, West Angeles Church of God in Christ, with Bishop Blake, who is the presiding bishop,
famous church.
Of the Church of God in Christ, our organization that we are part of. And they connected after that, and you know, and I kind of stepped in and kept in touch and kept the relationship going. He had my dad come do his mother's 80th birthday, which was a phenomenal experience. He sent, you know, coach buses for the whole choir and gave them signed basketballs and signed jerseys. It was amazing. And he came back to Milwaukee. Magic came to Milwaukee to do an open door free business seminar from basketball to big business.
Wow.
And, you know, the people in the community came out and they were able to hear his testimony and ask questions. And it was at that point that he kind of took me under his wing as one of his mentees. And it's been an amazing relationship. But that tweet, when he did that, that was a shocker to me, because part of what I am to do, part of my responsibility in our relationship is just to kind of keep him up to speed on the things that I'm going on. So I sent the email, and his assistant Natalie emailed me back like,
"Oh wow, you get an assistant's name, Natalie." Oh, that's okay, Natalie. Wow, hey Natalie.
See, I slipped up.
I mean, you're that close, right? It's just Magic assistant, Natalie.
Shout out to Nat. Yeah. But yeah, she emailed me like, "Hey, Mr. J's probably gonna be calling you. Stay by the phone." And you know, he she said, "Have you seen Twitter?" And I looked at Twitter and saw that he put it out, and I was like, "Wow, it's amazing!" And he called and congratulated me. So it was, you know, he's a class act, man. He's a phenomenal guy.
See, when I read that, I'm like, "This is what I thought." Oh, we made it! I'm like, "Oh, we made it!" Like Magic tweeted us out. We made it, right.
We made it.
Forget about DJ. No, we made it. So that was
that's funny.
That's I mean. All those talent, all those people that you met, man, that's a blessing that you meet all those people.
And it's all God, man. Like, you know, I can't take any credit for it. It's just God is in control, and I'm just open to whatever he has in store for me, you know?
So I have some questions for you about being in a black church in Milwaukee. Are you guys getting involved with the DNC, all that stuff coming to Milwaukee? I mean, because I'm guessing every politician is going to be coming to your church.
Sure.
Because, you know, this is what they do.
Yeah.
You know, when they want selection time.
Yeah, they come through.
They always show up on the selection time. You know, some of them are, you know, authentically do come around more often.
Right.
But most of the time, it's when it's election time, they come around to black churches and show up. So how are you guys dealing with that? How do you go deal with all those politicians?
So, you know, right now, our position is that, you know, we welcome them to come and join us for service, and we will most definitely acknowledge that they're here. But you know, we can't utilize the platform of the church, you know, as a place to push candidates' agendas and so on and so forth. So if someone reaches out, and they do all the time, and say, hey, we want to stop by service, we say, hey, come on in. You know, we want you to be a part of our service. And if they come in, we'll say, hey, we have such and such with us today, and that'll be the most of it. We don't get involved beyond that at all.
But you do let them come in. So are you guys prepared for them coming in?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we make it easy.
You've done this before.
Yeah, I mean, for years and years and years.
Who's the biggest politicians come to your church? Don't say biggest because you'll offend someone.
Yeah, I don't.
Give us a list. Give us a list. Right.
I mean, literally, like everyone has
Obama come?
has come by. No, Obama hasn't come by. Michelle. So I guess everyone hasn't come by.
Okay.
Yeah, I stand corrected. Hillary. So let me rewind. We haven't had many presidential candidates to come by, but governors and senators and everyone else.
But this is the problem, though, right? So I had my good friend Ben from the Democratic Party here, state chair, here in our last episode.
Yeah.
And they keep talking about they want to reach out to African Americans, people of color. And so just by you saying that there has been more presidential candidates coming to the biggest black church in Wisconsin is a problem.
So let me ask you this: Why do you see that as a problem?
Because if you really want to reach people of color and you clearly, sincerely want to meet them where they are, you go where they are, right? If you go to their culture, you don't say, "Come, I'm gonna have a coffee meeting, come meet me." You go where the communities are. You go meet them where they are. If this was other places, like if you want to meet, like historically, if you want to meet people of color, especially black folk, you go to a black church. So you go. It doesn't be a black church, but you go where
I can. Yeah, I can understand that.
So that the point that they don't come to your church.
Yeah. And that's true. Yeah, the presidential candidates do not come by. Now, like I said, the governors and senators and so on and so forth.
Such an important. We're a swing state. We're so important. It's amazing that's actually sad, and that tells me a lot about where the party is. They're not coming to your church. You know, and again, it's not the church. I'm just saying where the black folks are.
Sure.
Just in Milwaukee, highest population, where you need the turnout to be huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe getting overlooked a bit. Yeah. I can understand that.
That's fundamentals, guys, like basic 101 stuff.
That's a fair assessment, for sure.
So you guys do a lot of stuff there also outside of, so you do like a community development. Like when I visited your church and you guys had like a real presence in Milwaukee. Do you have a strategy of like how do you actually do community development and help build communities up in a place in Milwaukee was one of the most segregated places in the country, some of the most challenges in the country? Do you guys have a plan of where does that focus?
Well, so the focus stems from what we call CORE, which is Community Outreach, Resources, and Education. So the community is the focus, and the community can involve, or it does involve, the church community, those who gather on a weekly basis, and then our surrounding community as well. So those are our focuses of people. Those are our focuses of the groups that we'd like to touch and inspire and help build and motivate and grow and so on and so forth. And then outreach is, what resources do we have that we can really use to impact the community that we're here to serve. And when you start talking about outreach efforts, the needs of people, they go on and on and on and on. So we want to make sure that we can find our focus and help meet the needs through outreach efforts. And then, of course, being a resource. Now, resources is a little different than outreach because resources are things that people need on a day-to-day to really to live a productive life. So, for example, if someone who was incarcerated is just released, they may need help recovering an ID. They may need help with affordable housing. So the resources that we can, offer to help people, like I said, live a productive life on a day-to-day. And then education is a big part. The schools, in addition to, hosting financial literacy seminars, health and wellness seminars, educating people and making sure that we can help offer the information that they need to be successful. So that's where, our work stems from. It's the CORE, the Community Outreach, Resource, and Education.
That's wonderful. Do you get a lot of help from city resources? Like is just the church just funding most of the stuff?
So predominantly the church and the membership are the number one resource to everything that we do. There have been partnerships that we've been able to appreciate and grow and that have been helpful to some of the things that we do. There's a amazing organization in Racine called Manor House, and they help us feed people on a quarterly basis. And this is food, not, toss aside food that we would all take home and eat ourselves. So again, there are some partnerships, but it can be difficult to get all of the necessary support that's needed to do the work, simply because there's a lot of red tape when it comes down to dealing with churches and what or other organizations can and can't do, and so on and so forth. So our primary resources come from those who have been committed to the organization, some for a short period and some for a long period. The organization is 30 years old as of last year. And, there are people who have been committed to the work. They've seen the productivity of the work, and, they continue to help support it.
A lot of people that think of Milwaukee, there's a lot of the state is scared of Milwaukee, right? And what would you what's your assessment of where Milwaukee is today? Being there for as long as you are, knowing all the communities that you do, knowing the data, most segregated place in the country, all the bad stuff we hear about Milwaukee. But you still live there. You can live anywhere you want, especially out of context. You can be anywhere you want, but you're still in Milwaukee. What's your assessment of where Milwaukee is today? Yeah,
so when you talk about where Milwaukee is today, there are different spaces that we can talk about, but as a whole, I feel like Milwaukee is going through a growth spurt, and that there's been this time in which we've come to the point of where tremendous change is happening, tremendous change that needs to continue to happen. I think we're growing from an economic standpoint, of course. The big catalyst was the new Pfizer Arena. There's no skirting around that. Shout out to those guys who came and, had a great vision for the city and were able to get it done. I know some people agree with it and some people don't, but at the end of the day, it was a great catalyst to, hotels and restaurants and new places to live, new condominium buildings, new apartment buildings. So there's an excitement about Milwaukee, and I've been there my entire life, and since I've been in Milwaukee, I can't remember so many people excited about the city of Milwaukee. Of course, the DNC is going to put a huge lens on our city, and our hopes are that, while we understand that our city has challenges like every other city, we'd hope that the media does a fair job of showing, the tremendous work that's being done in Milwaukee. So I think that's where I feel our city is. I feel like we're in a huge transition period, a huge growth spurt, and it's an exciting time to be in Milwaukee, most definitely.
Yeah, and you guys are right in the middle of all of it. I mean, this is what's interesting that Milwaukee, I think Milwaukee is growing. So I think Milwaukee's changing. It's growing big time. Even the Bucks winning, right? The Bucks winning gives a whole different narrative.
It's crazy,
to Milwaukee, right? I mean,
number one team in not just winning, number one team in the NBA.
Yeah.
Okay. It's that Milwaukee pride.
Yeah, I see that. Your whole attitude changed. Like
not just winning. We number one.
See now this is where you and Magic have beef, right? Because like the Lakers, he talking about the Bucks, right?
Right.
Okay. Your chest. You said it with your chest.
It's the Milwaukee pride. I've been a Bucks fan for a really, really long time.
Oh, that's too bad.
Since the
that's too bad.
I'm
shouting. I'm joking. The Bucks.
Yeah, see, y'all hear him? Sometimes it be your own people. It be your own ones, right? He's right here in Wisconsin.
Peter, the Bucks, we love you guys. I was just joking. We've done a lot of stuff with them. I'm joking. I'm
man.
A Bucks fan.
They're doing a phenomenal job ever since the 80s as a kid. I don't see, if you weren't a Bucks fan, do you remember Terry Cummings and Paul Pierce?
Yeah.
So my dad was...
That's when they playoffs. They're all the time every year.
Yeah. My dad was really, really tight friends. They're still tight friends with Terry Cummings. And I grew up with his boys, and that was kind of like my first real exposure to the Bucks, and I've been a diehard fan ever since.
Kind of one of them bougie brothers. You know everyone, huh?
No, see, it's not even like that, man. See, there you go. You're trying to label me. You're trying to be your own people.
I come in peace, people.
You always started it, man. I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to keep it professional.
Right. We don't really do keep professional around these parts. Okay, so Milwaukee's changing. What about leadership, right? So like, I'm not talking about politician leadership.
Okay.
I'm talking about the community leadership.
Yeah.
And I'm always amazed when we do our most influential lists.
Sure.
That there's always so much talent in Milwaukee that it just amazes me how much talent there's, how many people are doing different things in Milwaukee.
Sure.
How do you seeing that yourself?
Most definitely. And here's the thing. You're exactly right. There's some amazingly talented,
unbelievable talent in Milwaukee.
Individuals in the city. There are amazingly talented Black leaders in the city of Milwaukee. And I think what has to happen now is that the gatekeepers have to start to pass the baton to the young leaders. And it's not an easy thing, you know what I mean? And my dad, he has really helped me see that it can be difficult, because when you're a visionary and you've been running with the vision for so many years, it's not easy to say, okay, you know, you can take it now. But I think that in order for the city to continue to grow and for us to continue to develop young leaders, we have to start doing some passing of the baton, because I believe the talent is there.
Extremely. There's so much talent in Milwaukee.
I just think the mentorship may need to go up a notch, you know, where some of our leaders start to take some of our young talent under the wing. And, you know, one thing about young talent is that, you know, there's so much energy and there's so much excitement. And I think where mentors are key is that they help harness that energy and excitement and direct it in the right path, so that, you know, they don't have to keep coming back and say, oh, I didn't do that right. I didn't do that right. I didn't do that right. So that's what I think, man. I just think that it's time, again, transition. Like, you know, the growth, it goes right with the growth spurt that the city is experiencing right now. So,
you know, that's why, you know, we do create a Wisconsin Leadership Summit that you came to.
Yes.
And because we wanted to get all those talented people together in one room, wanted to get the young with the old, etc. So that's the idea, is like bring all these wonderful talented people in the state together just to start to mentor and talk and be peers and grow, right? I mean, that's the hope, which leads me to the question of how do we get Milwaukee and Madison folks together more? Because, you know, historically, there's always been like a separation. Milwaukee Black folks here, Madison Black folks here. And here's the thing: when you talk to all of us, they all have the same issues, same struggles, same wants.
Right.
I mean, it is amazing. I could be in Green Bay, I could be winning, but they all have the same issues. What tips would you give us to that we can have more unity and more partnership?
Well, honestly, you know, I think it takes people like yourself that, you know, aren't afraid to reach out to Milwaukee leadership. Like you reached out to me, you know what I mean? And you came to Milwaukee, we connected, and then we decided to build, right? So I think
we're gonna do some exciting things.
Yeah. And I think that's what it takes. I just think that it takes the catalysts like yourself to say, you know what, there's some things that I want to get done. I see and I recognize what this person is doing in Madison, and I want to make my support known to that person. And I think that as those relationships build, we'll start to, you know, see a closer relationship between Milwaukee and Madison, because it's very necessary. We're an hour away. Right. There's an hour of highway, you know, between us. And I think there's some phenomenal things, excuse me, that can take place once we start to come together on a more regular basis.
Before we go, I'm a junior. You're a second. How does that? Do you feel pressure with your dad being your dad?
It's a really good question.
As big as he is, and you know, my dad's here. People growing up, they know my dad. My dad's attorney, did all this stuff.
Yeah,
everyone knows my dad.
Yeah.
So, do you feel pressure being your dad's son and the same name? Like, is there pressure in that?
You know, growing up, I'm 38 now. Growing up, there was a lot of pressure, but it wasn't from him. It was from people who had certain expectations of me based on who he is and the amazing things that he's accomplished. And the older I've become, the more I realize that, first of all, I appreciate my dad for keeping a name, a good name, that I could carry. And then not only I can carry it, but I've given my name to my son as well.
I did that too.
Yeah. So, you know, that's the first piece, regardless of the pressure. The first piece is just being appreciative that there is a strong name there, because, you know, there's a good name is priceless. But as I've become older, I realize that it's not up to me to live up to people's expectations. Say, well, do you preach, and do you sing, or do you play any instruments? And, they ask me all these questions. And I'm like, no, not really. No. And they're like, but you Darrell Hines, the second. And I'm like, yeah, but there are other things that I do, that, fall outside of the things that, I've grown up seeing my dad do. So that pressure has kind of fallen off over the years, but it took time. That was like a big part of, my own personal growth, was feeling less pressed to live up to people's expectations of who I should be based on who he is. And even, it was interesting, like getting out of school when I was graduating college. I always wondered, like, so should I introduce myself as Darrell Hines? Or should I introduce myself as DJ Hines? So for my first few years coming out of college, everything was Darrell Hines, Darrell Hines, Darrell Hines, Darrell Hines, right? And then people would mistaken and think that it was my dad that they were speaking to. So that was the reason I started going by DJ Hines, just because he's, it's like, if you expecting the bishop, you about to be real disappointed. Okay, so it's just DJ, it's just DJ. But yeah, man, no pressure at this point in my life. It has subsided tremendously.
Well, just remember all this, because you gave your son your name. So
yes,
you happen to know, Mace, Magic, all those people. That's a little pressure being passed down to him too. So just remember all the pressure that's passed on you, that's going to be passed on to him, and how you can make sure he...
Yeah, and no, it's true. And I'm helping my son find his own path, even at just 10 years old,
There has to be pressure for him, too.
I imagine at some point he'll start to feel it, but,
yeah,
I'll help him out with that.
You help him out.
Yeah, he'll be all right.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on another episode of Real Talk, people. My man, DJ.
Man.
I appreciate you, man. And
appreciate the time.
Look forward to doing more work with you in the future, bro.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.